In a shocking revelation, Ajoke, the daughter of the late megachurch leader T.B. Joshua, has come forward with allegations of widespread sexual crimes, abuse and mistreatment within her father's church. In the heart of Lagos, Nigeria, within the confines of the Synagogue Church of All Nations, a young girl's nightmare unfolded. Ajoke, daughter of the revered church leader T.B. Joshua, endured an unimaginable ordeal. At the tender age of 7, she was inducted into the Disciples, an elite group of followers living with T.B. Joshua and adhering to strict regulations. This was where her life took a drastic turn. She was treated as an outcast, subjected to physical and emotional torment, a far cry from the divine sanctuary the church was supposed to be. Ajoke's days were marred by beatings, humiliation and torture. She was forced to wear a sign declaring her a bedwetter, a public symbol of her degradation. But the worst was yet to come. The abuse escalated to a boiling point when she was forced to endure hot water torture, an unimaginable act of brutality. When Ajoke reached the age of 17, she confronted her father about the sexual abuse allegations made by other disciples. Instead of seeking justice, she was met with even more hostility. She was expelled from the church, the only home she had known for a decade, and left to fend for herself on the unforgiving streets of Lagos. The disciples, once seen as a privileged group, were revealed to be victims of T.B. Joshua's tyranny. Their strict adherence to the church's rules was not out of devotion but fear, a chilling testament to the power T.B. Joshua held over them. Ajoke's story is a chilling account of abuse and torment behind the walls of what was supposed to be a place of worship. Her courage to speak out against her father's atrocities has shed light on the darkness that resided within the Synagogue Church of All Nations, a darkness that had been hidden from the world for far too long. The Synagogue Church of All Nations, known as SCOAN, was not just a place of worship but a fortress of fear and abuse. The church was home to an elite group of followers, known as the Disciples. They lived with T.B. Joshua, the late megachurch leader, under strict rules and conditions. Among these disciples was Ajoke, Joshua's own daughter, who was taken to the SCOAN compound at the tender age of 7. Life for Ajoke at SCOAN was far from the loving and nurturing environment one might expect for a child. She was treated as an outcast, subjected to physical and emotional torment. This abuse included beatings, being forced to wear a sign, labeling her as a bedwetter, and even being subjected to hot water torture. But the abuse did not stop at physical punishments. The emotional toll on Ajoke was just as severe. She was isolated, humiliated, and kept under the oppressive control of her father, creating an atmosphere of fear and intimidation within the church. This reign of terror escalated when Ajoke was 17. She had the courage to confront her father about accounts of sexual abuse by other disciples within the church. Instead of receiving support or justice, her accusations were met with even more abuse. She was eventually expelled from the church, left to fend for herself on the streets of Lagos, Nigeria. But Ajoke was not alone. Over 25 former disciples have come forward corroborating the allegations of sexual abuse within the church. Their stories echo Ajoke's, painting a haunting picture of life under T.B. Joshua's rule. The allegations against SCOAN paint a picture of a church operating under a veil of secrecy, where abuse was rampant and unchecked. The BBC conducted a thorough investigation into the allegations against SCOAN, and what they found was deeply disturbing. This investigation was no small feat. It involved speaking to more than 25 former disciples of the Synagogue Church of All Nations, all of whom corroborated the allegations of sexual abuse. These brave individuals, some of whom had endured years of physical and emotional torment, came forward and shared their experiences, providing a chilling insight into the hidden world of SCOAN. Their stories painted a picture not of a house of worship, but of a place where power was wielded without consequence, where respect and reverence for a leader turned into fear and manipulation. It's important to note that these weren't just isolated incidents. This was a pattern of behavior that spanned years, if not decades. The abuse was systematic, ingrained into the very fabric of the church's operations. The BBC's investigation was extensive. They examined the claims, cross-referencing testimonies, seeking out evidence, and piecing together a narrative that was as horrifying as it was compelling. This was not just a case of a few disgruntled individuals seeking to tarnish a man's reputation. This was a deeply rooted culture of abuse and exploitation that had been allowed to fester unchecked for far too long. What was the response from Scowen to these damning allegations? Silence. No attempt to address the claims, no effort to provide an explanation or to reassure the public. Instead, they chose to deny previous claims against their late leader, TB Joshua, a move that only served to raise more questions than it answered. The findings of the BBC investigation were a wake-up call to many. They highlighted the dangers of unchecked power, the importance of accountability, and the courage it takes for victims to speak out against their abusers. The BBC investigation shone a light on the dark secrets of Scowen, forcing the church and its late leader into the spotlight of scrutiny and condemnation. The revelations were deeply troubling, but they were also an important step towards justice. And perhaps most importantly, they served as a reminder that no institution, no matter how revered, is above reproach. Despite the horrors she endured, Ajoke is determined to fight for justice and speak the truth about her father's actions. This tale of resilience and bravery begins with a woman who, despite being left homeless and ostracized by her own family, chose to stand tall in the face of adversity. After being expelled from the synagogue church of all nations, or Scowen, Ajoke found herself alone in the bustling city of Lagos. However, rather than be defeated by her circumstances, she saw this as an opportunity to start anew, to reclaim her life from the clutches of her past. Ajoke's first step towards recovery was to seek an education, a fundamental right that had been denied to her during her years of captivity within the church's compound. She understood the power of knowledge, the strength it could give her to not only rebuild her life but also to fight the injustices she had faced. But Ajoke's ambitions extended beyond personal development. She was driven by a desire to expose the truth about her father and the church he led. She became one of the first whistleblowers, bravely sharing her experiences with the world. Her revelations served as a catalyst, prompting other victims to come forward and corroborate her accounts. Ajoke's fight for justice was not without its challenges. She faced backlash, disbelief, and attempts to discredit her, yet she remained steadfast, committed to revealing the truth about her father and the church he led, a truth that was now being acknowledged by many others who had suffered in similar silence. Ajoke's journey is one of extraordinary courage and resilience. From the depths of despair, she has risen to become a beacon of hope for others who have suffered in silence. Her story underscores the importance of holding those in power accountable, irrespective of their status or the institutions they lead. Ajoke's courage and determination serve as a beacon of hope for others who have suffered in silence, and her story stands as a stark reminder of the need for accountability, even within the highest echelons of religious institutions. The allegations against TB Joshua and the Synagogue Church of All Nations are a stark reminder of the importance of transparency and accountability in all institutions. We're reminded that even places of worship, which should be sanctuaries of safety and peace, can harbor dark secrets. Ajoke's story is a testament to the power of truth, a beacon of bravery in a sea of silenced voices. The repercussions of her tale extend beyond the walls of her father's church. They touch on the universal need for justice and reform in every corner of our society. She illustrates the urgency of addressing abuse, of tearing down the veils of secrecy, and of holding abusers accountable. Her fight is a call to action, a plea for us to not turn a blind eye to the injustices that lurk within our communities. It's a reminder of the ongoing struggle for those who've been victimized and the relentless pursuit of justice they deserve. In this shared journey towards a more accountable and just society, we must remember that silence is the ally of oppression. As we digest these revelations, we must remember the courage of those like Ajoke who stand against abuse and injustice, and we must strive to ensure that such horrors are never repeated.